Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast, heard every single Monday through Friday. I guess you could say at a time most convenient to you, because the program obviously is listened to when you want to listen to it, which is one of the great advantages of the internet. You know, remember, I used to work in public radio, and this is back in the 70s, and so you could not have, there was no video on demand, there was no audio on demand, there was none of that. So if you wanted to listen to a program, if I was doing a public affairs program and you wanted to listen to it, you had to tune in at a specific time. All of that is changed now. Now you can tune in through the internet. We all know that, but that simple reality, I remember explaining it to someone who had worked in the internet and was at the ground floor of this exact technology. And I said, you have changed people's use of time, because now they can choose when to listen to the program instead of you telling them when to listen to the program. The same thing here. Of course, the program drops at midnight every single Monday through Friday, but people listen to it all through the day. And that's a great reminder of a new technology that we've had for about the past, well, actually close to 30 years, that allows us to do this new on-demand thing. Around this new stuff, this new on-demand. Back in my day, we didn't do any of this. If you wanted to watch TV or listen to the radio, you listened to them when they told you to listen. No. There's some of that still goes on. You know, the oldest radio program, they say in the world, I have no idea, but then again, I have no reason to doubt them, is the Grand Ole Opry. And on Saturday nights, I listen to the Grand Ole Opry. And how do I listen? I have to be listening to them at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, because they start at 7 o'clock Central Time, coming direct from Nashville. So there are some technologies that are still the same, but this is one that people are listening to at all different times. Speaking of communication, that's what's going to be our focus today. Now, today, again, we're continuing in Exodus. We are in the 19th chapter in Exodus, working our way towards the Ten Commandments. Now, what's going to be interesting is we're not going to read from Exodus tomorrow, because tomorrow is the feast of St. James, and therefore St. James has his own readings. So we're not going to be able to do that, and just so happens tomorrow are the Ten Commandments. What we are going to see is on Monday, the Lord will be, I believe it's Monday, Moses will be returning to the people holding the tablets, but we're not going to have, and strangely enough, we're not going to have the Ten Commandments, even though we've been focused on it, only because tomorrow is a feast of St. James. But in any case, we all know what the Ten Commandments are, and we can still talk about that to some degree. And therefore, what we're looking at right now is something that's important. And, you know, this may come across as, in a way, people say, wait a minute, how can you say that about God? So I want you to kind of realize what's happening here. Now, what you're going to see is a manifestation of God. Now, the Israelites, the Hebrews, also have already seen a manifestation of God. They've seen the various plagues. They have seen the Passover, and they've seen the Red Sea open up. They've seen the manna from the desert. So they've seen all these things that are there. And now what you're going to see is the Lord is going to appear. Actually, the force of the Lord, more than anything else, is going to appear on Mount Sinai. And the Lord is going to call Moses to climb Mount Sinai, where tomorrow, if we followed the regular pattern, you would see that he would give him the Ten Commandments. Understand that all of this you are reading about when you go and read the first readings. And don't forget, you can find them not only at bible.usccb.org, but on in your favorite daily missal, including one that you may have at home, which is a bound version of the daily missal. You can get that just about anywhere, including at your local liturgical art store, which you may want to consider visiting there because you're supporting your liturgical art store. But what you're seeing is God is communicating to the people. Now, I want you to kind of think what that means. And this is something you see with Jesus as well. What is Jesus doing when he's walking on water? What is Jesus doing when he's silencing the storm? What is Jesus doing when he's healing people? He is communicating to the people who watch this. Maybe it's just the apostles, maybe it's a whole crowd. It's a communication. And this is an important focus because to whom does the communication depend? To the recipient. God could come along and he could right in front of us create whole new worlds. Right in front of us, he could do that. But would we understand what was happening? But what God is doing here is he is communicating his presence and his power and his truth to Israel, to the Israelites. And in doing so, he is communicating to them that he is their God and he is greater than all other gods. And he's communicating it in a way that they will understand. This is an extremely important principle that follows us along to this very day. The FCC teaches as part of their program when you're going for a license, and of course when it was necessary, I had a third-class radio telephone license, as did any other DJ or talk show host or anyone on the air at the time. While I was in the Navy, they changed it a bit. But you had to go for a test, and you had to study this. And the first thing they would always teach is it doesn't matter what you say, it matters what people hear. And I taught this to a bishop in the process of him giving me several letters of reprimand, but that's a whole different story. But you realize it never matters what you say, it matters what people hear, okay? And that's the important aspect. What do people see and hear? And what they're seeing and hearing is the power of God, that this is the God who is leading them. And as it says right in the passage, if you go and read this, and this is the God who is teaching them to trust him. So he's got to do this powerful force in order to present to the people, this is who God is. Now, you have to see it in context. Is there anything that you can say that happened in the history of Israel and in the history of Egypt where there would be such a powerful manifestation of the power of God? And the answer is no, because those gods actually did not exist. See, this is the important consideration. So God is presenting himself in a way that they have never seen, and in a new way beyond the way they saw him, which was also something they had never seen, as Moses is leading them out of Egypt. And he's doing it in a way to communicate to them that this is the one to whom they are loyal as he is loyal to them. It's a whole different reality. I guess the best example I can give, and maybe it's not a good example when we're talking about God, but I still think it's the best example I can give as an understanding, is the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, do understand that's a fiction movie. But what God is doing is principles of communication. What is a movie? It is a form of communication. That's what it is. So everything in the movie is all about communicating a story. And if you don't communicate the story correctly, it's not going to make any sense. And so everything is about communicating a story. So what is the story in the whole Close Encounters of a Third Kind? When you finally see the mothership, and I'm not going to go into many details for those who haven't seen the movie, when you finally see the mothership, you realize you are looking at some form of a superior intelligence. Okay? Now, we're dealing with God, and God is obviously greater than that, but it's still a form of communication. Do you understand? So what God is doing is a form of communication. Now, we can look at this differently today, but it's still a form of communication. So we've seen the great power of the Lord, the great powers we see in the reading. We see the Lord coming down on Mount Sinai. We see the Lord calling Moses up. We see this power, the power of the Lord being communicated to the people. Now, what is a Catholic Mass? A Catholic Mass is obviously less elaborate, less powerful form of what is also communication. What is receiving the Eucharist? We know the Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ, but what is also happening? Even if you are not receiving, it is communication. So God is communicating to his people. This is the powerful reality. This is something, don't forget this. This is how God is communicating to us. And it is a form of communication. And this communication sends a powerful message. It's trying to communicate to the Jews. And this message, not to the Jews, I'm sorry, to the Israelites, because we don't call them Jews yet because Judah does not exist. But this powerful message at this time is something that not only is communicated to Israel, it is also communicated to us through Israel down through the ages. So when we go back and read that story, what are we learning about? This is who God is. And what else are we learning? This is not who the powerful gods of Egypt are, because they would never show this form of power, because actually they don't even exist. Even though people may consider them powerful, they don't even exist. We'll be right back right after this.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452.
That's 617-297-7452.
617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try.
617-297-7452, 617-297-7452.
Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. And don't forget, during the month of July, if you sign up for Patreon, it's free, doesn't cost you anything for right now. I may in the future make it be a subscription fee. I may. Now remember, you can still hear it for free on the internet. Don't worry about hearing this on podcasts, because the podcast will always be free. That's the way we do it. But the chance of being able to make a comment, make a suggestion, and all the other stuff, that might be by subscription. That might. Remember, might is the key word there. I'm communicating. But if you sign up during this July, and I do make a fee in the future only for Patreon, you will, which alone offers the previews, you will be able to get in still participate for free, because you came in on the ground floor. So I want you to understand that. So isn't that something? So don't forget that. So we're looking at this powerful message now. I want you to think about something. Maybe I'll go back to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Granted, in terms of the difference between God and aliens visiting the planet as portrayed in Close Encounter of the Third Kind, there's no match, none whatsoever, because God is God. And even, I know there are people that say, well, we don't believe in aliens. I'm not asking you to believe in aliens. I'm just using this as an example of a powerful form of communication as portrayed in a movie. So I'm not asking you to believe in aliens, but I want you to understand this. As powerful as a show, if we were to assume that there was something true about that, if we were to assume that in some way, God is more powerful than that. But what is happening? It's an example. The reason why I'm bringing it up, it's a great example of communication. And that's what the aliens in Close Encounter of the Third Kind are doing, is they are communicating with the people of Earth. It's a communication. So God is doing something even greater, because the aliens in the movie, fiction story, remember, the aliens would be, if this were true, which it's not, but if it were true, creatures. But God is creator. Do you understand? So the power you see is still is the power of God, and the power you recognize is in Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a power portrayed, which is still a creaturely power. So you see what I'm saying? God is speaking to his people, and he's trying to communicate to them who he is. Now, something to understand, he is limited by their ability to understand. Same thing with you. But so, thank God we're, literally, I suppose, thank God we're so much smarter than they are back then. We can understand so much more. Yeah, but your ability to understand communication is also limited. Maybe not to the same level it would be during the time of Moses, but it's still limited. Yes, you can understand the realities of the world at a greater way than the people back then, but you are not omniscient. What is communicated to you still must be done in a way that people understand. Do you see that? Even your communication must be done in a way that people understand. And people have to communicate to you in a way. Do you ever have that situation where someone says something and I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand anything at all. It's kind of like one of the things I could do. I always talk to people about this. I could always look at, from my master's divinity degree, and I always say something, well, let us have a discussion about the now I can't even do it. Let me do this. Eschatological dimensions of the parousia. Well, you're going, what are you talking about? I don't understand anything you just said, because you don't understand the words I spoke. And when I've taught Thomas Aquinas, yes, in fact, I have taught Thomas Aquinas. Not in universities, I've taught it in parishes. And what I do is I teach Thomas Aquinas's treatise on happiness. That's what I teach. Okay. So I learned this in the seminary. I said, I got to teach this when I got in the priesthood, and I've done it many times. Okay. So we look at Thomas Aquinas' treatise on happiness. And so the way I always begin is I have people read the very first question on his treatise on happiness. And they read it and they just kind of look at me and they go, and I say, now, you really have trouble understanding this? And they go, yes. I said, however, you can understand every word separately, but you can't understand the words together. And they go, yeah, that's absolutely true. So as you see, that understanding is limited. And what has to happen is we have to build on the foundation of that understanding so that people, including yourself, can understand what's actually being said. Do you realize that? So this is what God is doing. He understands what the limits are to people to comprehend what he is communicating. And so he's got to communicate it in a way that help people to comprehend. Now, let me give you a very big difference with Jesus. Jesus does exactly the same thing with the apostles. He's communicating to them in a way that they will understand. In a sense, he does it with humor. You know, I'll tell you what, we got 5,000 people here. Well, Jesus didn't talk like that, so I'm sorry, I took the wrong voice. But we'll say Jesus goes, we have 5,000 people here, and he says to the apostles, do me a favor, go out and buy supper, buy a meal for the 5,000 people who are here. And they're looking at him going, Lord, there's no way. We don't have anywhere near enough money. And we would have to have lots and lots of money in order to do that. And then Jesus says, watch this. Obviously, he used different language. But what he's saying, what did he do? He's communicating to them what is the impossibility of the task and how he will address it, further proving that he is God. You see that? So he's communicating to the apostles. Now, what is the problem with the Pharisees? They have hardened hearts. So it doesn't matter what they say, or what Jesus says, rather. They're not listening to him no matter what. Now, we had a theme there. We were talking about aliens. All right. And I said in regards to movies. Some people may be listening right now. So I don't believe, or some people believe that aliens are demonic. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm not addressing that matter at all, because we're talking about a movie. And a movie has the principles of communication. And as a movie has the principles of communication, that's what we're dealing with, because God is also giving principles of communication. And when you go to Mass on Sunday, ask the question, what is God communicating to you? He communicates in various ways. He communicates through the scriptures you will hear. The priest helps you to understand the scripture is better. God is not necessarily communicating through the priest, through his homily. Trust me, I know that. But it's to help you understand the scriptures better. Yes. I mean, there was a priest who used to tell us that in the homily. Remember, the scriptures are inspired by the Holy Spirit. Your words are not, meaning the Holy Spirit is not literally speaking through me, but I'm trying to be a channel of God's grace to you. But we all know really bad homilies, and I'm sure I've given plenty of them in my lifetime. So, but understand that the scriptures are God communicating to you. Now, that said, had an interesting experience, something like what must have been, I think it's close to, not quite, but close to 50 years ago. And this is going to get into the alien thing. But again, I'm not asking you to believe in anything to do with aliens, because it's about a principle. I had the opportunity to attend. I had to do it for early days of radio. You get involved in the interesting little stories that may be out there. I had to attend a talk by Betty Hill. Now, who is Betty Hill? Betty and Barney Hill are two of the original people who believe they were abducted by aliens. Okay? Betty Hill, they both passed away since then. Long story, you can look it up on the internet. But they believe they were abducted by aliens. In Betty Hill's story, which later came out under hypnosis, she says that while she was on this alien craft, up in New Hampshire, by the way, Now, it's up to you whether you believe this. I'm not telling you to believe this, and I had to write the article from which I delivered on radio from that perspective. This is what she said. It's up to you whether you believe it. But what she said was that they were going to give her a book as proof of this. And then one of the aliens said, no, we're not going to give her the book because we're not, whatever reason. So there was a little argument between the aliens, and she didn't end up getting the book. Okay, this was a story she told. Now let's assume for a second the story is true. How would people react to that book? Because some people would say, absolutely no way that is a real book from whatever planet these people were from. It's from a galaxy, a long time ago in a galaxy far away. Literally was from a galaxy far away, supposedly. So how would the people of the earth react to this book? Well, how do the people of the earth react to the Bible? Remember, we believe the Bible is the inspired word of God, God himself, and how do people react to it? Some people will sit there and follow every single word. Some people refuse to read it because they believe it's superstition. So you can see, again, it doesn't only matter what's being said, but it matters whether or not people are open to receiving it. Do you understand? So that's a different aspect as well. So this is the principle of communication that God is communicating to the people. I'm not talking about aliens at all. Not at all. I'm just using that as an example. But and what God is saying goes far beyond the anything the aliens could possibly say. But you see, this is what he's doing. He's communicating of his reality and his power in a way that is how the people, the Israelites, can understand it. It is nowhere near what he can actually do, but he has to communicate it in a way that people can understand it. We'll be right back right after this.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452.
That's 617-297-7452.
617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try.
617-297-7452. 617-297-7452.
Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and this is, of course, the final part of the program. So, when you go to Mass this weekend, and if you haven't been to Mass, it's a good time to go to Mass. When you go to Mass this weekend, spend some time watching and listening to what is happening at Mass, and ask the question, what is God communicating to you? And this goes, every aspect of the Mass is important. So I'm not saying what is he communicating to you in the Word. I'm not saying what is he communicating to you in the Eucharistic prayer. I'm saying what is God communicating to you from the time that the sign of the cross begins at the beginning to the blessing at the end. What is God communicating to you? Because it's all about communication. And what are you understanding in that communication? And what do you not understand in that communication? But you see that? It's all about communication, because that's how we interact with each other, and that's how we interact with God. What is prayer? Prayer, by the way, prayer is done with all five senses and done in all our body positions. What are we communicating to God in our prayer, including how we are praying, what we are saying, but what we're positioning in, and everything else? These are important thoughts to consider.
because we can see it's all about God communicating with us and us communicating with God. And when God communicates with us, we want to ask the question, what are we understanding what he is saying to us? Very powerful thoughts. And we can go right back to today's reading and see where they come from. Have a blessed day.